Well, as you could probably see, I am in an entirely new space, so this is going to take a little bit of getting used to. I haven't figured out the groove, haven't figured out the angles. I had my old room down to a pat, but now I got to figure it out here. But that's a whole story for another day. If you want to see the setup, here it is. Hi. And yeah, so let's jump right into the topic of this video. I've been away these past 2 weeks, and over the span of those 2 weeks, I've done a lot of traveling. So on those trips, obviously I had to watch a show. I mean, you have to watch a show when you're traveling, right? So that's exactly what I did, and it just so happens that I finished House of the Dragon, and I gotta say, I am so happy to be wrong. House of the Dragon is an absolute masterpiece, and I mean that in every sense of the word. If you haven't seen my video already talking about House of the Dragon and how I don't like Game of Thrones and all of that, I'm gonna link it here. But for a while, I was on the wavelength of I'm never going to see a Game of Thrones IP ever again. And then I saw this because I heard a lot of good things, so I was like, you know what? Let me give it a shot. And my lord, it is just fantastic. It really is. It's just fantastic. I can't wait for season 2. And I gotta say that this season has fully reignited that spark that was in me for Game of Thrones. It's actually making me go back right now and watch Game of Thrones. And I can't believe I'm saying that because I've always been a big time hater of Game of Thrones ever since what happened at the end of the show. So yeah, this show has really taken me by surprise. Like it's absolutely crazy that I'm even recording this video right now. I have so much to say, so let's jump right in. So for starters, it took me a little bit while to get on the wagon for this show. I started watching, what, I think 5-6 months or so, I don't know, since the show stopped running. And that was because I had a lot of skepticism about it overall. So I am pretty late to this project in general. I admit it. But I'm very glad I waited because I really don't know how I would have felt about a lot of the random time skipping that they did had I not already been kind of warned about that and I'd watched it live. If I'd watched it live, I'd still like to think that it wouldn't bother me that much because overall it didn't bother me that much, but it would have been a little weird. It would have thrown me off, and I'm glad I knew about it going into the show. Someone told me, I forget who, but someone let me know that this show had a couple time skips, so you're going, from young Rhaenyra, I'm just going to break it up in Rhaenyra because she's the most distinguishable, which is another thing. Everyone else, other like Daemon, that one knight person, they look exactly the same, except Rhaenyra and Alicent. They look exactly the same. Even Alicent's dad, oh, and of course Viserys, but we're going to get to Viserys later. But it is crazy. So I'm going to break it up by little Rhaenyra and old Rhaenyra. And in those time skips, and then I'm pretty sure there was like another time skip. I think there, yeah. There was 3 time skips. Young Rhaenyra, middle-aged Rhaenyra, older Rhaenyra. And, it would have bothered me a little bit if I didn't know that going in. So I'm glad someone spoiled that for me, even though it's not really a spoiler. And just so you know, there are absolutely going to be spoiler alerts in this video, and I'm going to drop a big one right now. See, I'm kind of weird. I actually enjoy knowing of spoilers. I don't like go out and seek them actively, but I don't get upset when I am spoiled something because I think there's so much to be said about a show when it's, the death is one thing, right? But when you go and you see what happened, you see the story that plays out, it's a whole different thing. So sometimes I actually kind of like knowing the spoiled moment because it helps me absorb the story better and not so much rely on a shock value. So for that reason, sometimes I'm okay with them. The reason I'm saying this is major spoiler alert, when the one guy with the dreadlocks, I don't know his name, it's the one guy's brother, when he gets sliced in the face. I saw that accidentally on YouTube one day. I think I was watching one of those videos, I forget what it's called, but it's one of those videos talking about how House of the Dragon blew someone away, and they were blown away by how good it was. I think it was in that video that I saw it. I don't know. But anyway, I was spoiled of that moment, so I knew that was coming. And honestly, the whole show, I was kind of like, okay, when's that guy's head getting sliced off? When's it getting sliced off? Because I knew it was coming. I don't like things like that, but whatever. I'm kind of glad I knew of that stuff, so it took a lot of the shock factors out of things. That being, obviously, the time skips as well as that death scene, which wasn't like a big death scene or anything, but I'm glad I got those moments out of the way so I could just enjoy it for what it is. And I really enjoyed it for what it is. I absolutely loved this show. It blew me away. It really does. It rivals very well with what the original Game of Thrones is. I'm not going to say, and I will never say in this video, that House of the Dragon is better than Game of Thrones. It's way too soon. Do I think it has potential to be? Absolutely. Absolutely. And here's a big reason why. House of the Dragon is based off of, I think it's called Dance of the Dragons from George R.R. Martin, which is a finished book series. And anything George R.R. Martin writes, I trust. Because, what happened with Game of Thrones is the writers of the show, David Benioff and D.B. Weiss, whatever you call them, they ran out of material. So they had to make up the ending. Those two were fantastic at adapting George R.R. Martin's content, but they were both really bad at writing original content. Here you don't have any of that. You have the source material from start to finish. And as a matter of fact, at that, Joffrey in Game of Thrones already kind of spoiled some of the major events of the Dance of Dragons in the show, so you get a little bit of a history lesson. You find out what actually happens to Rhaenyra in Game of Thrones. So it's kind of like Better Call Saul in a way where, the events that are kind of going to take place, but you don't know how they get there. You know what I mean? Kind of a little different, but you know what I mean? It's that sort of vibe. But I like that. I like that there is a concrete story from start to finish. We don't have to worry about the D.B. Weiss, David Benioff situation ever again with this series. And I like that it stands fully on its own. It's in Westeros. It's with the Lannister family. It's with, not the Lannisters, the Targaryan, but there are Lannisters in it. You hear names of the Tarleys. I don't think they've mentioned Starks at all yet or anything. But you hear all these names. You're in Westeros and King's Landing. So you're seeing all of the familiar sights, but it's a totally different yet similar Game of Thrones story. It's one of those odd spin-off shows where it doesn't feel like a cheap cash grab or anything like that. This legitimately feels like it's its own thing just in the Game of Thrones universe. And I like that because I hate when shows get milked to no end. Look at The Walking Dead. The Walking Dead's name is slapped on a million other projects and they're all kind of doo-doo, to be honest with you. So I like this. I like that this is taking that approach where it's Game of Thrones, it's in the same universe, but it really just stands on its own. And yes, you could draw parallels. Obviously, all the names are the similar. Like I said, it's all the same setting and yada yada, but it really doesn't feel similar. And I love that. But the one thing I love more than that, to be completely honest, is Viserys Targaryen. Paddy Constantine deserves every award on the planet for his role as Viserys. Viserys stole the show. It really was upsetting that he passed away in the show, and I hope maybe they go back to time skips in the past. I hope they do more time skips, is what I'm saying, so you get to see what happened previously with Viserys and stuff like that, and more of Rhaenyra's growing up. Because Millie Alcock, who played the young Rhaenyra, and Paddy Constantine, who played Viserys, were both fantastic. And not to say anyone else wasn't, but those two specifically stood out. I loved the young Rhaenyra and the young Viserys' dynamic. But again, specifically, Paddy Constantine did such a good job as Viserys. It really was kind of like Ned Stark from season 1 of Game of Thrones, where you didn't want to see him die, but his portrayal of the character was just so unbelievably good. That's how I felt about Viserys. He stole the show every time he was on screen. I absolutely loved him, and it's a shame that he died as a character because the story was just absolutely fantastic. And I really like that. And I like that this story overall feels way smaller than Game of Thrones, because Game of Thrones had so much to focus on. You had the Jon Snow story, you had Daenerys, you had the Lannisters, you had Tyrion, Bran, the list goes on and on, not even to mention Arya and Sansa and all of them. The list goes on and on. It was an ensemble show. Here, it is an ensemble show for sure. It's the same sort of idea where there's a lot of characters you're following, but it feels significantly smaller since we're only in King's Landing and we're only really dealing with the Lannisters and that other family, the Driftwood family, I forget their name. We're really only dealing with them, at least so far, and I really like that. I think it tells a very more concise and focused story, whereas you're jumping around so much in Game of Thrones that an issue like what had occurred in Game of Thrones, where it was bad because the writers ran out of source material and they had all of these characters to write for. I couldn't even imagine what it was like in the writer's room for that show, but you don't have any of that here at all. What you get is a very well thought out story of the Targaryens. And that's it. And I think I might have called them Lannisters earlier. I keep doing that. It's really bad, but whatever. The point I'm trying to make is the show feels focused, and we really, really needed that in the Game of Thrones franchise. It really just was great. But overall, I'm genuinely blown away by how fantastic that this first season was. I cannot wait for season 2. But overall, I'm really glad that they're keeping Game of Thrones' core story at the central focus of House of the Dragon. And what do I mean by that? Well, what I mean essentially is that they are taking the fight for the throne, which is the most compelling part of Game of Thrones because the politics written by George R.R. Martin were just so fantastic. But you're keeping that in this new story, and it feels so different but so similar, and I love it. It stands on its own, like I said. It complements Game of Thrones, and if anything, it actually makes me more interested in Game of Thrones, which I'm so happy to say, because for a while I lost all love and interest for it. This has fully sparked that interest back in. I love all the characters. I love Rhaenyra. I love Daemon. I love Viserys. I even like Alicent. Like, I really enjoy how she is and the dynamic she has with Rhaenyra, even though she's not really the best person ever. But overall, I like all of the characters we have here. There aren't any that feel out of place, and I'm glad, because I made a video reacting to the first episode. I'm glad it really picked up in a very positive way from the first episode. Not to say that it was bad. I just didn't love that first episode, but I loved everything that's came since it. Everything. All of the things. Even the time skips. I'm glad I know about them, but even those I liked. Even though I loved Millie Alcock as Rhaenyra, and I loved young Paddy Constantine as Viserys, I love those too, but I also love the older Rhaenyra, whose actor I can't remember her name. I'm not sure what their name is. But yeah, just overall, I am so excited, so beyond excited for season 2. I can't wait to see how this wraps up and how well it adapts some key moments in season 2 and the rest of the Dance of Dragons show, or book, adaptation overall. The overall point that I'm trying to make in this video is I loved it. I really did. I loved it. It reignited any feeling of sparks of love that I had for Game of Thrones. It's back now, and I can't wait to see what season 2 brings, what any other spin-offs may bring, even though I gotta, go into them cautiously. But I hope they don't fuck this up. Just don't fuck this up, and you're going to make another masterpiece in the Game of Thrones franchise like seasons 1 through 6 were. You know what I mean. I just hope they don't mess it up. And with that out of the way, if you like this video, be sure to give it a like rating, subscribe to stay up to date with all things Game of Thrones, House of the Dragon, Breaking Bad, Better Call Saul, The Walking Dead, pee pee poop, boop boop dee dee, the whole list. You get the drift. Yeah, so that's it. That's the video, and hopefully I'll have a better space set up soon. Deal with it for now. We'll get it fixed eventually. But yeah, again, thank you so much for watching, and until the next one, I'll talk to you later. Peace out.